What is up, everyone? The Councilmen is going live shortly to talk about all things James Bond on the Council Secret Service here today, episode 72, starting right now. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Councilman Show. Today, I am Albert Wiradharma, and I'm not on my own here today. We are going to be talking about all things James Bond, and I'm joined by a very special guest, which I'm going to introduce him very soon. But yes, this is as you see in the past few months. Every time we do a commentary track, the crew want to take a break. So this is my time to do some creative juices. Last time we did best scores of 2010s. The time before that, I think, did I do a solo episode? I don't even remember. But this time, I've been watching James Bond recently. And you know what? This is like a perfect time while everything is still fresh. I just want to talk about James Bond. And there's no one better to talk about it than with my good friend, Matt Carnahan, which you have probably seen him, listened to him, seen him on the show. And God, I don't remember what episode that was. I believe it was during when we talk about the most anticipated film of the fall of 2019. That was a while back. But yeah, let's just introduce Matt Carnahan. So Matt, welcome back to the show, the Councilman Show. And is this the second time that you've been on? Or has it been more than
I
that?
think so. Yeah, I think it's the second time.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. I reached out to you last minute asking if you want to be in an episode about talking about James Bond, and you definitely said yes. And if it weren't for the virus, we would have seen No Time to Die by now. But since it's pushed back now till when is it? Is it November?
November, yeah.
Yeah, so
I think, November 20th.
Yeah, it got changed again recently, I think.
Yeah, they pushed it up.
They pushed it up, right? Yeah. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show most likely. But this is just I just decided I've recently watched all the Bond film, all 24 of them. I did not see the non-Eon one. This is just the all Eon productions. And I don't know if Matt's going to bring up any of the non-Eon films here, but I told Matt, hey, you know what? Let's just talk about what's your experience with James Bond? What do you think is the best of these certain tropes and everything? Because a lot of James Bond films, some of them follow the same tropes, so you can classify some of the stuff, which is why I gave the list, best song or everything like that, best villain. But let's just start with it. So Matt, what was your initial reaction to James Bond? How did you get into the world of James Bond?
I don't know. I think I started watching them because my dad was a huge fan of them. So I grew up watching them. I think I probably started watching them when I was maybe 3 or 4. I don't remember watching for the plot until maybe I was 5 or 6. But yeah, I used to watch them all the time. There were definitely a few specific ones that I watched over and over again, just for various reasons. One of them was You Only Live Twice, because I really liked the third act in that, in the volcano. But yeah, I've been a fan ever since.
And if I didn't address it earlier, there will be definitely spoilers about some of the films because we'll be talking about all of them in depth. But yeah, so what you said the first time you saw it was 4 or 5. That's a really young age for watching something like James Bond.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember necessarily watching them when I was really young, but I'm sure because my dad was always watching them, so I'm sure I watched it when I was really young. But I don't remember watching it for the story and which one until I was probably 5 or 6.
Well, what is based on your earliest memory ever? Which Bond actor and which Bond film was it?
Well, I definitely know You Only Live Twice was one of them that I watched over and over again.
So Connery.
Live and Let Die also, Roger Moore, because that was my dad's favorite. So that one was definitely also one I watched all the time.
Yeah, I think, Live and Let Die, there is some darker tones to it, but I can definitely see that being a little bit more because of the goofy nature of it, it's a little bit more friendlier, I guess, for a younger audience.
And I remember buying the DVD for Die Another Day when it came out on DVD. So then I would have been like probably 5 or 6 when that came out on DVD.
For Die Another Day. Okay.
Yeah, I remember. I remember somehow I remember buying that at the store.
Yeah. Well, what about the Bond films? Like you would say that you're a massive fan of the Bond films, right?
Yeah.
What do you think is like the factor that appeals to you the most? Why do you just like them so much?
I don't know. I think I would say just the variety. There's so many of them that you get so much variety in action, stunts, locations. You get to see all the different actors and actresses. So I think just being able to have all those experiences really made it interesting for me. Especially, like I said, like the big third act battles really got me as a kid. So that is partly why I like action adventure so much today.
Yeah, I think watching them for the first time recently, a lot of the films sort of is like a testament of the time where they were made. Like you can sort of feel it. And you know how nowadays the blockbuster films are the Avengers film, the superhero flicks, because there's like the action flicks that people watch and just seeing the places. I think like back then, especially for Connery, the first time is that the 60s, the Connery's one, or is it 70s? Yeah, 60s. It's like it's probably one of the first ones that show that kind of like they have action in it. They show the exotic places. I think that's one of the most appealing factors of it. Because when I was like watching Dr. No, they went to Jamaica, and I'm like, this looks visually just looks great, and like it just explores a whole. They go to different places every time, and it's like, okay, this is like interesting to see. So I think it's a huge factor, a huge appeal to it.
Yeah, and also the villains I think really set the stage for like some of our modern villains. Like obviously Blofeld inspired, like the Mike Myers parodies, but a lot of the tropes that you see in James Bond in various films are now used in modern films today and other various genres.
Yeah, and like thinking back, like I thought one of the earliest blockbuster action films, I would say, is Raiders of the Lost Ark, because that's 82, and people didn't, I believe it's 82, and people haven't seen those kind of action films or like car chases or anything like that during back then, and James Bond just precedes that. So it's just, once again, it's one of the earliest forms of it, and I don't know how big British cinema was an influence for that, because it's not American produced, right? So yeah.
Right.
Well, I guess I'll talk a bit for why I decided to go into James Bond. It's always been sort of like a film gap that I've had, and I've always wanted to revisit it. I've watched before I watch all of James Bond, I've seen all the Daniel Craig ones, and I like some of them. Some of the others I didn't really care for it, but like I know there are a lot of things that I'm probably missing from the other James Bond film. And my dad loves Sean Connery Bond. He talks about it, but I just never got the interest and get to it. And it's like it's about time I catch up on James Bond, as well as I play in a trivia league, and one of the categories is James Bond. And I'm like, let's brush up on this thing. Let's see if I can do it.
Yeah.
So I decided to go to all the Eon James Bond films and watching through all of them. At first, I thought I was gonna be like, okay, at first I thought this should be fine. I probably wouldn't love it or anything like that. Dr. No was fine, and then the spy who not the spy who loved me, From Russia with Love. It was like, okay, it's kind of interesting. I like the thriller aspect, the mystery, the spy-esque thingy, and then Goldfinger. Goldfinger was the one which told me, because I'm like, oh wow, this is actually a lot of fun. This is a great film, great characters, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And of course, there are some films that are better than others. Some of them are feels a little bit boring. It drags on a bit, but some of them are it's just a fun watch.
Yeah.
And it feels, I don't know how to describe it. It just feels fun seeing all the exotic places, seeing all the different characters and the villains, and of course the Bond actors. They keep on changing, so it gives a fresh taste every time of what to expect, different tones, and yeah, it's just I've grown to really like the franchise after seeing all these films.
Yeah, and it feels so different from what we get or for what we've gotten in the last like 20 years from
Mhm.
other action. Like obviously the MCU, a lot of superheroes have taken over, but it feels so different from that. But also just because of nostalgia, it seems also fresh as well. Looking
Yeah,
back at it.
yeah, and there is something to say about like because James Bond is a big action franchise, and let's say like another big action franchise is like in the spy aspect, Mission Impossible is a big one that's nowadays I think is bigger. I think it have a bigger fan base than James Bond, at least for the current era of
Yeah.
movie going audience. And like I don't want to classify this as the same group, but like Fast and Furious is a big action one. But like something about James Bond film, it feels like it have so much craft involved in it. Just the music alone, the one that the scores and the technical aspect, like from a technical perspective, I feel like James Bond film have more craft than like the Mission Impossibles or like the Fast and Furious kinds.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Mission Impossible is getting more to that, the filmmaking aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there are definitely some gems even from the late 60s, early 70s, where the technical aspects of the filmmaking was really on display in the Bond franchise.
Yeah. In the live chat, Cole Sanders say, "What are your favorite Bond films, and why is it not Spectre?" We will get to it. It probably is going to be at near closer to the end of the episode. But I can tell you now, it is not Spectre.
Yeah,
It is not my
definitely.
favorite. Well, let's just start with. I gave you a bunch of checklists. Let's just start with the big one here, right off the bat. So, what do you think is the best James Bond actor, and why? And then after that, we'll chime in a little bit on what you think might. People have different tastes, so we're not saying which one is right, which one is wrong. But which one do you think is the least? I don't want to say worst, but like the least good of the James Bond actors. So we'll start with you. What do you think is the best one?
Well, see, it's so hard for me because I don't know if I could say best because I haven't read all of the books, so I don't know
Mhm.
if we're going off of like best adaptation from the books or just best actor. In terms of like my personal favorite,
Favorite?
it's really hard to choose. I'm really stuck between Connery, Moore, and Brosnan because those are the ones that first of all, I grew up on, and I also like when I think of James Bond, those are the sort of archetype that I think about. Just for various reasons, you might seem strange that like Moore is coupled in because Moore is a lot more of the cheesy action stuff like that. But I think just their persona and the way that they come across on the screen, they to me speak James Bond. So that's why those are my three favorites. I can't really decide between like obviously I like Pierce Brosnan as an actor the most, but between the three, those are the three I think about, and it's really hard to choose between them.
Yeah, I can see that. The Roger Moore, I think once again you said Moore is like the sort of like a goofier part. Brosnan, I feel like have that too.
Yeah.
Although Connery, not really. I feel like Connery is a little bit serious, although not as serious as like the Daltons or the Craig ones. But Connery, I feel like lean more to the serious side as well.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that as you get into like the more modern era, like Brosnan definitely had a lot more of the action and like running around, whereas I think Connery and Moore had a little bit more of the spy, like sneaking around.
Yeah.
But so I think it's a mix of those. I think when I think about James Bond, so I think that's why I can't necessarily narrow it down to a single one.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And if you think about it, it's funny how the first one is obviously Connery and sort of like the more serious type, right? And then you go to Moore, which is like sort of the lighthearted, goofy type. And then after, well, okay, Lazenby in the middle. But he only did one film, so you cannot really judge from that. And then Moore with the more goofier type. And then after Roger Moore, we got Timothy Dalton, which is like more serious again, once again. and then goes back to Brosnan, which is a little bit on a lighter tone again, and now we have Craig, which is even darker and more grittier than before. So it's like it's sort of like transitioning, I guess, like going back and forth of like, oh, let's go lighthearted and a little bit more for the fun side, and now let's go to more serious and darker one. So yeah, and I think people's favorite Bond actors is going to really depends on when they grew up and what's the film that they grew up with, you know?
Yeah, I've heard basically everyone say a different thing. Like it just depends on what you said. Like some people, their favorite is Dalton.
Yeah, and for me, this one is once again tough, but I think it comes down to two, because obviously the first James Bond film I ever saw is Casino Royale. But I didn't saw it on 2006. I saw it years after because of a Chris Stuckman video. He made a video of the most definitive action films of all time, and one of them that he put down is Casino Royale. And I was like, all right, let's check out all these definitive action films and why he thinks is good, and Casino Royale's in there. So that's the first one I ever saw.
Yeah.
And then the second Bond film I ever saw was Spectre. So I jumped directly from Casino Royale to Spectre. I saw Spectre on theaters. So yeah, that's why my first impression of Bond wasn't like the best thing, because I really didn't know what I was getting myself into.
Yeah.
But going back to the thing of my favorite Bond film, again, like I said, it probably because of I grew up watching it, but like it's the first impression of it and how much it appeals to me. Daniel Craig is up there for me for James Bond, just because first of all, the films that he's in, Casino Royale and Skyfall, they are incredible. They are among my two favorites up there. And seeing the younger side of, now that I've seen everything, seeing the younger side of Bond, because Casino Royale is supposed to be like his first mission per se for the 007, even though it's not really the same timeline. But seeing that younger side is kind of interesting and refreshing take. And Daniel Craig just do a fantastic performance in all of them, and giving a different sense to it, just from Casino Royale to like Spectre of the aging agent. You can definitely see that, and I think Craig is just a fantastic actor for that role. But also, I have to give credit for Sean Connery, because I think he set the tone for all the Bond films, for all the Bond actors. You can tell after watching Sean Connery, you can tell that the other actors sort of like take hints of his performance and try to replicate it in some of the films. Like, I think I noticed Connery does a lot of grunting, and if I'm not wrong, Dalton does that as well, a lot of them. And it's like it's clearly he set the tone for what a James Bond actor is supposed to be. And so you gotta give credit where credit's due for Sean Connery right there.
Yeah, for sure. I think I should have prefaced it by saying I like all of the actors. Like, there's not one that I necessarily dislike. It's just like picking, your favorite.
Yeah, I agree. Cole Sanders once again in the live chat say George Lazenby is underrated. I agree. I like George Lazenby as Bond. I do not dislike it. I know he only had one film, and I think back then, because I read the retrospective review, I think most people has come along and like this film even more as time goes on. But I think back then it wasn't received as good when it came out.
Yeah, I just rewatched it last night actually, and
really?
He was a lot better. Like, because I always liked him, but I always thought like, he's all right. But I rewatched it, and I definitely see why he was chosen. I think it was his first film role. I'm not too sure about that. I think it was.
I believe it is.
Yeah.
I'll fact check that.
I saw a lot of Connery in his performance, a lot more than I remember. And so, I definitely, him and Craig, I have like in the next sort of tier under the others, just because they're not necessarily my favorite, but I still really enjoy their performances. And then I guess if we're moving on, so my last tier would be Dalton. which you know
Okay.
I like him as an actor, and I really like his movies too. I like his I like the character in the, I don't know how to phrase it, but like I like the movie and I like the way he does it, but I don't necessarily like his portrayal of Bond in the movie. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I like the overall idea of the character, but I just don't like how he did it in his two movies. But I still, you know, enjoyed all of them.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely understand that. Um, and yeah, going back to the Lazenby thing, that was his first film ever. Because before that, he was a model. He wasn't even an actor. They
Yeah.
tried to cast an unknown, and then they got George Lazenby, the actor from Australia. I believe he's from Australia. Um,
Hmm.
and yeah, talking about Lazenby, I really like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but maybe it's because it's just the one film that he's in, and I haven't seen enough of it. Uh, I Once again, I do not dislike it. I like Lazenby as Bond, but it's probably my least. I will put it in the lower tier um, just because maybe because there's not much to see from that one film.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely think if he had done, well, I don't know about Diamonds Are Forever, but if he had done another, you know, two,
Mhm.
we definitely could have seen a lot more range there.
Also because like you did told me when I was watching this film, um, and On Her Majesty's Secret Service feels very different than the other Bond film, and like I can definitely understand that, and it
Yeah.
just makes him stands out even more. But it just puts him in an odd position, sort of.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I'll put him in the bottom of my list, even though that doesn't necessarily mean that I dislike him. But yeah, my if I have to put something above it, and I would probably put Dalton as well.
Yeah. And for Dalton, you know, it's not even because of the darker tone it took. Like I enjoyed that. I liked it with
Mhm.
Craig, and I like what he did in his movies. It's just when I think about Bond, I don't. It's just the mannerisms he does. It doesn't really strike me as, you know, in James Bond in his movies. So that's the only reason.
See, that's interesting because like you talk about the part of Bond in the earlier film where it's like more to the sneaking aspect, and even like Lazenby, he does a lot of sneaking because he's literally undercover. Uh,
Yeah.
Dalton does that, especially in A License to Kill. He was literally undercover and he's
Yeah.
sneaking. So that's more to what you were saying that you like about Bond.
Yeah, I think it's just it's not so much the action. I think it's more of the when he's like speaking.
Mm,
And you know, having dialogue with other characters, it just doesn't feel as much like Bond as the others. But
okay.
you know, it's ultimately it's a minor nitpick, and I still, you know, enjoy the
Yeah.
performance.
It's sort of funny too because before watching the Dalton James Bond, all the other Dalton film that I've ever saw is that he plays it as a villain. Like I've only saw him in Hot Fuzz and like The Rocketeer, in which he's
Hmm.
villains in both films, and like I cannot see him as a protagonist until I saw James Bond. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him in anything else other than like Doom Patrol,
Mm,
but not in a movie.
yeah. Well, let's transition then from the hero of the story, obviously James Bond, to the villains. Which villain stands out the most? Which is your favorite? Which one do you think is the best? And then we also talk about which one is in the lower end of the tier for you.
Yeah, this is really tough because there have been so many. Sometimes there are like two, sometimes three in a single movie. Yeah, I think my favorite, possibly just because it's you know, close to my, or it is my favorite movie actually. But I'd say Goldfinger as a villain is my favorite. I just think he kind of set the stage for what all the other, I guess, non-Blofeld villains were like.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I was debating because I do like Blofeld as a character. I think it's just a little too cliche, and I think there are too many um, actors that portray him to really narrow down. I did rank them separately, not, you know, as the same character. I ranked all the actors separately. So I would
Mhm.
say definitely Goldfinger. Just in general, I think he is my personal favorite.
Okay. Yeah, I would. I have some. I have a few that I list down, but the number one that I put is also Auric Goldfinger from the film Goldfinger.
Yeah.
He's just a terrific, a brilliant villain. And his plans, if you think about it, is probably one of the smarter ones and different. Like a lot of them, like want to do ransom, or they want to nuke some place, or like they have some personal vendetta or something like that. Him, spoilers again. He just want to be a rich dude by contaminating the gold in Fort
Yeah.
Knox, and it's very different and it's very smart. And it helps that he have a henchman, which is more to the physical opponent to Bond, and we just have to be the intellect, the opposing
Hmm.
intellect for Bond.
Yeah.
So Auric Goldfinger is definitely up there for me too.
Yep.
What are
Some
yeah.
Yeah, some honorable mentions too. I do like Alec Trevelyan from GoldenEye, Double O
Okay.
Six.
Mm-hmm. Shandu.
Sanchez from License to Kill.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do like Elliot Carver from Tomorrow Never Dies. I think not a lot of people put him in like, the top 5 or even top 10, but I really like Jonathan Pryce, and I think it's one of my favorite movies too. But I really like his performance and his kind of ideas. Well, not his ideas, but his plan. Like it also is sort of unique.
Yeah. For me, just to throw some name out there, like you said, Sanchez from License to Kill. He's one of my favorites in terms of villains. And two from the Daniel Craig ones. I like the performance from Javier Bardem for Raul Silva. Raul Silva isn't my favorite villain per se because of his motivation. But I like what he do with the character, and of course, Le Chiffre, played by Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah,
I think
those are my next two actually.
Raul Silva and Le Chiffre.
Yeah.
I noticed that none of us mentioned a villain from the Moore era. Is there? Do you have one that stands out from Roger Moore as a villain, or not? Not really.
Scaramanga has almost made it.
It's probably the best villains out of all of them, isn't it, for Roger Moore films?
Yeah, I would say so. I like Kamal Khan, but I don't think he's necessarily as good
Yeah.
as Scaramanga. Yeah.
Let's talk about the least favorite Bond villain then. What do you have?
I don't know. It all just kind of flows into one or each other. I am gonna put Gustav Graves as the bottom from Die Another Day, or should I say, Colonel Moon.
Colonel Moon.
I just think, whatever. Also, Hugo Drax was also near the bottom. I think the way he dies is just kind of boring, and he definitely has one of the most evil plans, but he just doesn't really come across as very menacing. And then I do have other ones I have are like Dominic Green and from Quantum of Solace, and Whitaker from Living Daylights.
Yeah, I would say before I get to my, I'll just say it actually. The worst one I think is called Colonel Moon, like you said, Gustav Graves. But yeah, Dominic Green is such a forgettable villain.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? Whitaker. I wasn't a fan of Whitaker as a villain as well. I think, which sort of like you said you. I can't remember if you said that you like his other character because he played a CIA agent as well in that films.
Joan Baker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he played it.
It doesn't help that I don't like both of his characters they ever played in James Bond. So yeah.
Yeah, I think he was in Tomorrow Never Dies.
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't he in like the plane? Yeah, I think between the two, I like his CIA agent performance better. Whitaker was just kind of fizzled out.
It's too goofy and
and goofy in a movie that otherwise like Dalton was playing a darker theme, so it just didn't really fit.
Yeah, and that's definitely the case. And we do have a question about Dalton soon, which I will talk about. But the villain played by Julian Glover, Aristotle Christatos.
Yeah.
See, I even forget the name because that's how forgettable the character is to me, the villain. The film have some good stuff in it, but I thought the villain was just kind of forgettable in that one.
Yeah, I actually like him because I think I like Julian Glover. He definitely, he's played, 3 pretty big villains in big franchises.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I like it just because of the twist, where you think he like
Yeah.
basically sets him up to think it's the other guy, but it's really him. That's probably why I like him. But yeah, I can definitely see why you think he's kind of forgettable and not as good.
And yeah, while we're still in the topic of villains here, a villain that the only villain I believe that has been recurring as the big bad ever is Ernest Blofeld. And at least for me personally, I want to hear what you think. I don't think there has been a Blofeld character that I particularly like. Like the closest thing to a good Blofeld to me is from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Telly Savalas, I believe that's the actor.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing of being a good Blofeld. But I don't think there is any Blofeld villain that I care for. I think the Blofeld from Diamonds Are Forever not wasn't the best. He's barely there in You Only Live Twice. You can just see him in a glimpse, and he barely did nothing, even though they hint that he did something. And Christoph Waltz did a good performance, but I couldn't care less of him as a villain. So I want to ask you: do you think that Blofeld is a good villain, and do you think they should use him again in future films?
Well, part of the problem is I think is the adaptation, because like you brought up, You Only Live Twice. Yeah, Donald Pleasance. I don't know. It's hard because when you think about like a Bond villain, he usually comes up at the top. Like that's kind of the image that you think of, with the white
Yeah,
hat. Um,
even
but yeah,
parody.
you brought up Telly Savalas too. Yeah, and I think the problem is in the books. I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service, that was that storyline. That was the first time they met. And so that's sort of why there's a bit of a continuity issue with the films, because it's like, well, why didn't you recognize them? So I don't know if they had done On Her Majesty's Secret Service before and had that storyline with Telly Savalas or even Donald Pleasance, either one. I think it would have been a better, if they had like switched the two. I think it would have been a better overall story, and I think he would have been a little bit more memorable. But again, I also like the faceless one from Russia with Love. I think he doesn't show his face at all, but you still get a glimpse of
okay. Yeah, the Blofeld
character with like Rosa Klebb and Constein. So I think that also, that like faceless kind of character, I think that also works. But and I think that might be my favorite of all of them. The one that doesn't show his face because it's sort of menacing, but he doesn't, even though he doesn't do anything. And Diamonds Are Forever, Charles Gray, kind of forgettable. Spectre, the thing is, I love Christoph Waltz, but Spectre just kind of fizzled out. I think we'll see how it goes with No Time to Die.
Is he supposed to come back in No Time to Die?
Oh yeah,
did they confirm? Oh, he's in. Oh, I didn't. I forgot. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see if he plays a bigger role or if he just sits in the chair. I don't know. We'll see.
Talking about Spectre a little bit, I don't like the fact that they tie him into his childhood. I think that's just it's just something about revealing that origin too much. Just sort of, like I understand how they revealed his Bond origin in Skyfall, which you never really got an origin of Bond ever in all of your previous films. But like obviously with the original, with Casino Royale seeing his first film, and then you learn a little bit more about his personal life, and not personal life, his personal feelings in Quantum of Solace, and then you learn about his childhood in Skyfall. I think Spectre sort of stretched it a bit with like introducing, it turns out this guy is supposed to be Blofeld has been your brother. I'm like, what? It doesn't work for me. So yeah.
Yeah. And he's been the architect of everything that's been going on in the last few movies.
Yeah.
That I don't know, that doesn't work for me as much. So, and going back just briefly to Silva from Skyfall, that's also one of the reasons why I think the performance is great, but I think overall in terms of story, I just the thought of like this omniscient villain that has everything planned out, everything goes perfectly, it just doesn't hold up for me as well as I remember it. That's why I used to love Skyfall. But yeah, it's part of the reason why also the Blofeld thing, where it's like, oh, I've been playing all of this, for you. It just it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you really think about it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll see how they will use him in the upcoming film for No Time to Die. And
Yeah.
there's a question again by Cole Sanders. Do you think that those Dalton films do you think that those Dalton films darker tone detract from the traditional Bond style? What do you have to say about that?
No, I mean, again, I really enjoy like License to Kill is one of my favorites. I really like Living Daylights.
Mhm.
I don't think the darker tone. I think in some ways it actually, helps the storyline a lot. Especially the like really dark tone in the first 10 minutes of License to Kill. Um,
Mhm.
it takes a lot more of a personal journey. But yeah, I definitely think it helps it, but it has to be done. It has to match the performance of everything else. Like Living Daylights. We already talked about Whitaker being a little cheesy.
Mhm.
I just think, yeah, it's not the darker tone that I think detracts from it. I think it's just his performance for me.
Yeah, I also don't think it detracts from the traditional Bond style. And again, I don't think there are tropes in Bond film, but I don't think there is a definitive traditional Bond style. Um,
Yeah, I
and
mean, going back to like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, that
Mhm.
was definitely a change in tone, and that was only after a few movies. So I think
Mhm.
definitely making something a little different doesn't change the quality of the movie.
Yeah, and the Living Daylights, License to Kill and Living Daylights, I like both of them. And I think the Living Daylights feels, maybe it's because License to Kill feels not. I wouldn't say it is dark, but it is because it's a very personal story for him. It's a very personal vendetta because of the story, if you know it. And
Yeah,
I think the Living Daylights, it follows more of the usual trope ish, and that is also the first film after Roger Moore. So that's why I don't know how far away they want to stray from the usual trope.
yeah,
And I think as well, Roger Moore probably feels if you're saying a film is following a formula, I think the Roger Moore films is the one that do that the most. Like it feels like every film follows the same beat in the Roger Moore films.
yeah. I
Uh,
think I'd agree with that.
so yeah. But yeah, let's while still sticking with villains then. Is there any other villains that you wanna say out before we move on to henchmen? Because henchmen villains same similar.
Yeah. I don't know. I think. Well, I guess maybe just shout out the one of two female villains we've had. Or
Mm.
like main female villains, Electra King and I guess Rosa Klebb, I think
Rosa.
you can
Mhm.
consider. Yeah. Definitely, I think Electra King, I would say, is better, but just because I think she has more to do.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I like both of them. So, and I wish we would get more like main female villains.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I guess Rosa is sort of the main villain. I wasn't sure if that she classifies as a sort of like a henchman because she's under Blofeld, so I wasn't sure if she's the main villain or she's the henchman. But I guess she is sort of the main villain, and
Yeah,
I like her character and
yeah,
her performance a lot. And they actually let her fight at the end of the film, so that's sort of fun to see.
yeah. Or try to fight.
Yeah, try to
It
fight.
doesn't really go that well.
Well, she got double team, so yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, Electra King. I did mention I didn't brought up Electra King at all, but I did mention it to you. That character, I like it. It have a lot of potential, but I don't think they use her potential as much because they portray Bond definitely have a weakness for women, and they portray him as sort of the love interest earlier in the film, and that gives him sort of like a personal attachment to Electra King. And even though Bond tried to stay detached as much as possible, you can clearly tell that Bond have a liking to her, and it could have been used so much better. But I think the potential of both her and Renard is very underutilized in the whole context of the whole film. But they have great potential to be great
yeah.
villains.
I think the fact that like you think Renard is the guy behind it all, but then it's actually
Mhm.
her. I think just the fact that they're both of them, it's hard to figure out, exactly what their motivations are, and so it's hard to rank her super high just because of that. But I definitely think her overall performance is good, Sophie Marceau.
Mhm. Right. All right then. So I see a comment in the live chat. We'll hold off on that. We'll go first on the henchman talk. After we talk about the henchman, then we'll go to the live chat. But yeah, if you guys have questions, feel free to just chime in. And
Okay.
so yeah, best and worst Bond henchman. I preface this first that I cannot think of a bad Bond henchman when I'm making this list. I list out the possible henchmen that I can think of, and maybe the
Yeah.
bad ones are the one that I couldn't even think of because they're so bad. But like the one that I have, I cannot think of a really bad henchman. So I don't know what your experience is when you figure out what the ranking is for this one, for this category.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think they're as henchmen or women, they're supposed to be, somewhat forgettable. Just because if you make them too memorable, then it takes away from the main villain.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely was able to rank them, but it was definitely hard to pick like, oh yeah, this is the absolute worst.
Mm-hmm. Well then, I don't know if we have. I think we have the same favorite for this one. I'm not sure.
Well, I think yeah, we did. I changed my mind though because I don't know. I just have a particular liking to my favorite.
Okay, then I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead first then, since you
Okay.
went with the previous one. I have two that's in my top list. The first one that initially, as soon as I see the character, as soon as I heard about the character's name, as soon as I see the portrayal, I just like I love this character. It's Oddjob from Goldfinger. Once again, we mentioned how Goldfinger is sort of the intellect opponent for Bond. Oddjob is a physical opponent, and he's just way superior against Bond in terms of physical in any scenario. He can crush a golf ball with one hand. He have a hat that could literally decapitate people, and he doesn't say a single word. I think the only word he says in the film is like "aha" when he grabs the golf ball in the field in the course. I think that's the only thing he said. But yeah, Oddjob just steals the show without saying anything, and so it's such a good henchman for Ariq Goldfinger. And my other one is this character. I didn't like him when I first saw him. I thought it was kind of stupid, and then the more I go into the film, the more I sort of like the character. And then, of course, the character came back for another film, which sort of reveal which one it is already by this point, because there's only one henchman that sort of come back. I liked him even more in the second film just because of how they use the character and how it really played to the strengths of that character. And it's Jaws from The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. It's just a fantastic. It's a stupid premise. It's literally a big guy with metal teeth, but the way how they use his character and the fact that he never, he did at the he don't die. He didn't die. How many instances that they tried to kill him, but he just could never die, and he just overpowers one every time. And he also never talks. So yeah, Jaws is there for me. How about you?
He talks once in Moonraker.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Oddjob is my number 2 actually. He was my number 1, and then I changed my mind. For all the same reasons you mentioned. It's really close. But my number 1 is actually Xenia Onatopp from GoldenEye, which kind of a different choice, but I think
I don't think it's a different.
I mean, I love Famke Janssen. I think I really like her performance. She's just insane, and I think she's one of the ones where I like and her death is really memorable. She stays alive until near the very end of the film. So yeah, I always like the character.
Xenia Onatopp. She's definitely a memorable henchman. Only for one film, definitely memorable. Just as good as the main villain itself. And Alec, I forget his last name, Trevelyan. But yeah, Xenia Onatopp. She freaked me out, her character. But she's definitely a good character for a henchman. And again, of course, all henchmen have done some killing in the Bond films, but all her scenes is like memorable. It's like also it's different. And it's very sadistic too. So yeah.
Yeah. And the next ones I had Jaws for sure. I had Red Grant. For Jaws, it's like I agree with you. The only issue I have is that in Moonraker, it's like he tries to kill one person, I think once, but then he doesn't, and it like when he doesn't kill anyone, it's like they know they're setting it up for him to turn good. So it's just like, oh well, okay, he didn't kill anyone in this movie, so he's a good guy now, even though he killed all the people in the first movie. But that's like my only complaint, just in terms of like storyline. One henchman that I think is underrated is it. I don't know. I've never heard anyone talk about him. Is Necros from Living Daylights.
Which one?
I don't know.
Which one
He's
is
the one. He's like the milkman who like attacks the CIA stronghold.
I'll have to Google this because I don't remember. But yeah, keep talking.
Yeah. He and then he kills the agent at the like carnival with the balloons. I don't know.
That guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I never hear anyone talk about him, but I think he's just memorable and he's honestly a little scary. And I know he's always listening to the Pretenders. So yeah, I think he's a bit underrated.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's my favorite, but yeah, Nick Ross, okay. Well, I'm trying to think if I have some honorable mentions. I don't think. I guess she's technically a henchwoman, sort of. When I'm rewatching, because I actually watched Thunderbolt twice, because I told you that. I thought Fiona Volpe was a great character.
Yeah,
and she definitely at some point she definitely was not outsmarted, but like Bond couldn't get away from her. She's just right there all the time until eventually Bond quickly outsmarted her, and then she definitely died. But yeah. And you mentioned Red Grant. I thought Red Grant was he's a good henchman too. Played by Robert Shaw, who's now famous for Quint and Jaws, obviously. But the fact that he's sneaky and he's literally like James Bond, but like under Spectre's leadership. Because he's sneaky, James Bond didn't even know that he's there. He's just there throughout the whole film until he took over Nash, and then he pretended to be Nash, and then James Bond didn't realize it until then. And if it weren't for the briefcase, probably he would have won. So yeah.
Yeah, I think his accent pretending to be Nash is really good. I don't know if that was dubbed. They dubbed a ton. But wow. Yeah, it was probably dubbed, but either way, I think the voice was funny when he does.
All right. Well, what do you think is on the other end of the list? What's the not so good henchman?
It's really tough. I think Professor Dent is definitely near the bottom. I think he just like with the spider, it's like okay. Wint and Kidd, Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd. I think
that's what I
don't know if they're not necessarily bad. It's just they're just so creepy. Yeah,
they're bad.
They don't actually accomplish much of anything. Yeah.
I guess Professor Dent is sort of a henchman. He's sort of like a side villain, I guess. He works. He
doesn't really last very long.
So, yeah. I had Wint and Kidd because Mr. Wint and Mr. Kidd because like they're so stupid. They're really they're just bad. They're just bad.
I guess I should have included Bambi and Thumper too, because those are also they're all of them are in that movie.
They're all from Dinosaur Forever, yeah.
Yeah.
I know you like this film, but I don't think he's the best of the Bond villains, Bond henchmen. I think he feels repetitive, and I don't think he brings anything new to the table. Stamper.
Oh yeah.
He's just a physical prowess, and like we have seen that kind of henchman before. I don't think he stands out in any way. So Stamper is definitely there for me for like on the
kind of
lower
similar
end.
to Necros too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm Zhao. I don't like him, but I don't think he's bad. I think he's just there.
Yeah.
He's very forgettable. So yeah.
I thought also Hinks. I don't know. Like
Bautista.
I think he's fine. He just doesn't really do a whole lot. So I would rank him near the bottom too.
Although I'll give credit though, because he, at least his first appearance in the film, he definitely steals the show with the violence.
With the eyes.
Yeah. But the rest of his performance is just like fine, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything else, but there are a lot of memorable henchmen. Definitely, like obviously Mayday. She's a character of her own. Live and Let Die have
Dario,
a Dario Benicio del Toro. Live and Let Die have a
yeah,
bunch of henchmen that you can even
yeah,
talk about.
Whisper
Nick,
and Teehee.
yeah, Nick Nack obviously is sort of not the best one, but he's definitely not forgettable as well. So that's good.
Yeah, Miranda Frost.
Yeah, I don't. She's
I
not the
think she's
best.
near the bottom. Yeah,
She's near the bottom. Yeah.
but she's definitely more memorable than some of them.
Uh huh. Also, I'm looking at the list right now, and they put Professor Joe Butcher, and I don't think he's a henchman, but he's definitely not the best character
No,
either way.
yeah, no way. He doesn't do anything.
All right then. Before we go to the Bond girl, there is a question from Steven that says, "Have you read the books, and how would you compare the books to the movies based on what you know?" I personally have never read the book, so I cannot say anything about it. How about you, Matt?
I've read like a couple of them, but it was really long ago, and I don't remember like anything. I wouldn't be able to, in terms of adaptation to the film. I like I mentioned earlier, I do know in terms of like storyline, the basic storyline with like Blofeld, that definitely on Her Majesty's
Mhm.
Secret Service, if that movie had come earlier, and they had used the same storyline but just in an earlier movie, I
Mhm.
definitely think that would have had a better impact on the overall relationship between Bond and Blofeld.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Once again, I have nothing to chime in because I've never read the books, but
Yeah,
pretty sure there are some things that are better in the book. Some things probably they did better in the films, like every adaptation.
yeah, I would have wanted to get into all of them, but
Mhm.
it's just not something I more into movies.
Yeah. Talking about characters still, trope that's always in every film is the Bond girls. Some films have
Mhm.
multiple of them. Some film have one of them that stands out more than others. So, what do you think is the best Bond girl character or your favorite, and what do you think is in the bottom of the list for that?
So my favorite, well, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's my favorite, but I also think is the best character is Tracy from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think, and it's not just because of the like romance and the fact that she
Mm-hmm.
becomes his wife. I think just as a character, she really stands out. And she's not like a damsel in distress. She really is very strong-willed. She can, handle herself well. And I think, yeah, Diana Rigg is just her performance is really good in that movie. So she is definitely my favorite, and I think she's near the top of the best.
Yeah, I would agree. Just because her character get because the only one that he got married to, and her character got brought up a lot. That definitely
Yeah,
you cannot ignore Tracy or Teresa di Vincenzo. Um,
yeah.
she's definitely up there to my list. She's the second one to my favorite one of the Bond girls. And like you said, you already mentioned everything that I have to say. It's just the romance aspect of it, and the fact that spoilers, she got killed at the end of the film was really heartbreaking. I did not see that coming. I was really it feels different that he got married. I didn't know what to expect next, and then the next thing you know, right after the marriage, boom, she's gone. I'm like, wow, that
Yeah,
was depressing. So yeah,
yeah.
but my
The rewatching the first 20 minutes of that movie, it like you can just feel like the connection between them, like the
Mhm,
development between them is
mhm.
so good. Yeah, it's not something I remember from earlier when I'd watched it, but last night I definitely I really enjoyed it.
And outside of the romance part, she's very capable on her own too.
Yeah,
She saved Bond at one point. So
yeah.
that and yeah, but yeah, talk about my favorite Bond girl.
I
Uh,
think I know.
yeah, I've mentioned it to you, and it's from my
Yeah.
first film, and I think she just stole the show every time she's in it. And my favorite scene from that film also involves her, and it's Vesper Lynn from Casino Royale.
Hmm.
I think Eva Green did a fantastic performance of stealing the show, both as a character and using her sexuality for the classic Bond girl trope. I think Eva Green did a fantastic job, and Vesper Lynn being the first sort of, well, I don't know if I want to say it's the first James Bond love, but like from his films, like earlier in the timeline, this is definitely his first one, and it really makes the best. I think the best Bond girl characters are the one that make an impact to the character of James Bond, and that's why Tracy and Vesper is in here, because Vesper affects all the Daniel Craig films, and it makes Daniel Craig not trusting. That's what set off. That's what set off the storyline basically for Quantum of Solace, and it really helps his character develop even more in the other films. So yeah, Vesper Lynn is definitely my favorite.
Yeah, I agree. She's definitely in my top 5 for all the reasons you said. And what scene were you talking about? Because it's the scene where they first meet. That's my favorite.
When they're in the train. Is that your favorite? Yeah. No, something about the part where they were in the shower and Bond just consoling her. Something about that just gave me warmth, and like it really, because Bond was a little bit distant too since the beginning. He's just trying to do his job and just very serious. And that moment really showed that Bond actually have a heart and he actually cared, because he doesn't have to, but he's there to console her after she witnessed the death of the henchman of the whatever those characters are. I forget, the one that's attacking Schleifer. So
yeah, definitely the writing in that movie is really good, especially the dialogue between them and just how that develops.
Yeah, and also I put four Bond girls here for my favorite ones. So we covered 2, Vesper, Teresa, Pussy Galore for obvious reasons. She's the first one I think that is independent on her own, doesn't really need Bond, and she works for Goldfinger, but going against Goldfinger plan at the end of it as is revealed. Pussy Galore is definitely, even though for the ridiculous name, she's a fantastic character.
I agree.
And from my favorite Moore film, Anya Amasova, or Triple X from The Spy Who Loved Me. Similar reasons. It's similar reason to Pussy Galore and Teresa. Very independent characters, and they are very capable on themselves as well. But at the same time, they have the usual trope of having the sexuality that the Bond girls have. So yeah, Anya definitely up there for me.
So we actually have the same top 4.
Is that really your top 4?
Yeah, not in the same order, but the same top 4.
All right. So what was your 5? Just wondering. Do you have it?
Tracy. Second one is Triple X.
Okay.
Third is Pussy Galore. 4th is Vesper. And then 5th, I put Octopussy because I really like Maud Adams, and I think I really like the character is great. And then the others, it's really hard to choose, but just honorable mention, they're like Waylon, Melina Havelock, Pam Bouvier, who I think is really underrated. Because she came out of the Dalton films. I also like Natalia from GoldenEye, and then obviously the first one, Honey Rider from Dr. No.
Once again, I only put 4 in my main list, but I put several honorable mentions. Honey Rider, because of her presence and being in the first film. She was good in the beginning, and she becomes sort of a damsel at the end of the film. But she definitely sets the pace, like how Connery sets the pace for Bond. She definitely sets the tone for all the Bond girls. Tatiana Romanova from Russia with Love. I thought she was great. Like you said, Pam Bouvier. I thought she's fantastic. Wei Lin, Natalia Simonova from GoldenEye. I thought she was good, and she's not exactly a Bond girl, but they listed as Bond girl. I thought Eve Moneypenny, played by Naomi Harris. I thought she was great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting because a lot of our picks are the ones that are like have, I don't know, can stand on their own. Like they can fight, or they have some special skill that they can use. And then there are also a couple that are like Honey Rider, who's more of like a damsel in distress. But I think it's interesting just seeing the choices we made. Definitely, I agree with all those. Yeah.
And for the bottom of my list, I have 2. Christmas Jones, played by Dennis Richards in what's the film? Tomorrow. The World's Not Enough. The World's Not Enough. And Tiffany Case from Diamonds Are Forever. I think those are in the bottom of the list. I don't know if it's the same as you, but as soon as I see them when I was looking at the list of the Bond girls, they're like, oh yeah, they're definitely in the bottom of those two. So yeah.
Yeah, those are definitely in my top or my bottom 5.
Mhm.
The ones I have absolutely at the bottom are Stacey Sutton and Mary Goodnight. Because Tiffany
Yeah,
Cates
Mary
and Kristen
Goodman.
B. Jones. Yeah, they're all. Yeah, Mary Goodnight. She should have been so much better because she was an actual agent. But yeah, all 5 of them or all 4 of them are really bad.
Yeah, Stacey Sutton is also quite forgettable. Dennis
Yeah.
Richards' character is just bad because of her performance. It's not believable at all. I don't believe her for a
Yeah.
single moment that she's an expert in nuclear. Tiffany Cates was just very forgettable.
And annoying.
And she's also annoying. And yeah, I think I agree with the rest of your list. And I just want to point out one thing. You mentioned Maud Adams. I like that she's in 2 films. She's the only Bond girl that says repeat in 2 multiple films.
Yeah.
Being Octopussy and
Man with
what's
the
her
Golden
name?
Gun.
Yeah, Man with the Golden Gun. I think her actress
Anders.
Andrea Anders. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like her more as Andrea Anders, even though it's a little less character, because I thought Octopussy was kind of a stale character. But yeah, I just want to bring her up because she's the only one, once again, that ever played 2 different characters as a Bond girl, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think Octopussy. I think she. I personally like the performance more just because she had more to do.
Mhm.
And I think even though I like the way that character went, how she was actually turned good, I think that to me would be what I would want in like a main female villain, more so than like what we got with Electra King, because I think it's really interesting how she was like. I mean, she could have been the main villain if they had changed the story a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what I would want if we got another one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we covered a lot about the Bond girl trope, unless you want to mention any other characters.
No, I guess I would just mention Severine because I really like the character, even though she doesn't do a whole lot. But yeah.
Well, I think that's it for the Bond girl. Well, okay, last thing. Both Bond girl and Quantum of Solace I thought was very underused and not very good. So yeah, I'll just say that.
Yeah, I definitely think Camille Montez is underrated in the sense that she the performance is good, and I think she was a decent character. She just didn't, the movie overall was just not good, so that's why it really detracted from that performance.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on then to as Cole asked it. What are some of your favorite Bond songs? This is the one that we're talking about. The best Bond songs, and we'll also throw in scores in here if you want to. Best Bond songs, and then the least favorite ones. And I personally find this one the hardest out of all the rankings.
Yeah.
I found this one the hardest because a lot of them are really good. A lot of them are okay, but the good ones I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you want to go ahead and start first?
Yeah. So growing up, I always liked Live and Let Die, Living Daylights, View to a Kill, because those are had a lot more of the like rock elements. But yeah, when Casino Royale came out, I really like My Name. I think is my favorite because I like the music, but I also the lyrics are really good. Like when you look at the lyrics themselves, and I definitely like there's the fan theory or whatever that it like the lyrics are about M, and definitely if you read them, I mean it's definitely M talking when you look at the lyrics, and then
I never noticed that.
Yeah, because it's like saying all the different things like arm yourself and stuff like that. Definitely stuff that M would say, or from her position. It's not something that Bond would necessarily say. So yeah, definitely my favorite. Even though I do like all the others that I mentioned.
Yeah. I guess I'll say mine. First of all, I'll say I think Roger Moore have the best Bond songs. Because a lot of the ones that I have here are from Roger Moore. Obviously, Live and Let Die is great. I like A View to a Kill from Duran Duran.
Really? I thought you didn't like it.
I grew to like it. I didn't like it at first.
Okay.
I really like it now. Moonraker, I like Moonraker's song. I didn't like the film that much, but I like the song. And
Yeah, I think it's good.
this one might, I don't know if this will surprise you, but All Time High by For on I forget by who, but in For Your Eyes Only. That's a really good song. That's a really good Bond song right there.
Yeah, that's definitely in my top
Yeah.
10, I would say. Yeah. I agree with the more having the some of the best ones. I like Nobody Does It Better, from Spy Who Loved Me, For Your Eyes Only, Sheena Easton, from For Your Eyes Only. What do you think about the Craig ones? Because personally, I have Another Way to Die as my bottom. I
Is
think
that
the song is
Wait,
awful.
Another Way to Die? Is that Quantum?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I hate it so
very,
much.
that's a very forgettable song.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Skyfall, I really like Writings on the Wall. I know it's very controversial, but I like it. I like Skyfall better, but I thought, I mean, 3 of the 4 have been really good.
Yeah. I think I think 3 of the 4 are good, but I just wouldn't put them among the top ones. I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know what about it. It just they don't resonate as much to me. It's just like it's just in it's like between average and the top of the list, like in the upper half, upper echelon, but it's not definitely not the
yeah.
end of it. Um, and yeah, I also do like Writings on the Wall, and I mentioned earlier All Time Highs from A View to Kill. Sorry, that was from Octopussy. So yeah.
Oh, I think you did say Octopussy.
Oh, did I say Octopussy? I thought I say
Yeah.
View to
No,
Kill.
you said it right.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, and also, Goldfinger is the first one that have a Bond song, and I think that sets a tone. Once again, that's a very good song.
Yeah.
Because From Russia with Love and Not or No doesn't have a song; they just have a theme. Without like not lyrics, not lyrical song. Like they have a melodical song, but like no lyrics. So Goldfinger was the first one, and You Only Die Twice. You Only Live Twice. It's a great it's a really good one. It's a really good
Yeah.
song. So yeah.
One that I think is underrated is World Is Not Enough. I think it's a little weird, but I think people tend to just kind of throw it away and be like, "Oh, this is awful." But I think the themes really stand out, especially when they are played in this actual score in the movie.
Yeah. Well, I know you're probably not gonna like me for this, but I said Roger Moore have the best Bond songs. I think Pierce Brosnan have the worst Bond songs. And Die Another Day is in the bottom.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Yeah, GoldenEye I think is all right, but it's it's a little forgettable.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, Die Another Day is I think my second.
It doesn't fit.
Yeah,
at all.
second to the worst.
It's like a pop music video suddenly playing in front of a James Bond film. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and then Tomorrow Never Dies it's
It's fine.
Sheryl Crow just seems like an odd choice for that,
Mhm.
but I guess you could say that about a lot of others.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mentioned my least favorite. And yeah. So you have anything else to say about these songs? Oh wait, you want to say about scores, don't you?
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing is in terms of scores is that a lot of the scores are influenced by the songs themselves. Like you can hear a lot of the motifs and themes
Mhm.
playing in the scores. My favorite, I think, just overall, my favorite score is on Her Majesty's Secret Service. I think, yeah, the opening theme, it's so good. I also like Goldfinger. Obviously, I told you about that before.
Mhm.
Other one, yeah, Spy Who Loved Me, the Bond 77 theme. That's the one I was also telling you about. That is also really good. It's like the disco theme. All the others, I think, have just various tracks that I think are really good. I know the thing I like the Living Daylights score. My only issue with it is that it doesn't feel cohesive enough. Like there are,
They're
like
all
the
over the
Living
place.
Daylights song, the Living Daylights song, and they use that theme in the movie, but it's not like the main theme. I don't think they play it when like uh, they're doing like Pushkin's fake assassination. They like when he's trying to escape from that, they play that. But then there are also other themes that they play that you like sound more like the main theme that John Barry was scoring. So I think it just doesn't. It seemed like there are too many tracks going on, even though they're all great tracks. It just didn't seem very cohesive. But overall, I like the scores themselves individually.
Yeah. Once again, I cannot say much for the scores because I don't know if I didn't pay attention to the scores or anything like that. Once again, this is my first viewing of all the films. But maybe it's because this is the only ones of the older ones that I've seen twice, just because we haven't talked about Thunderball enough. But the theme for Thunderball, I thought was really good.
Yeah,
It's deep and it's like quite menacing. And I thought they did a good job, especially since I watched it twice. I noticed it the second time around that this is the same melody that they use for the theme song, and they use it throughout the whole
yeah,
film, and they use it fantastically. So yeah, I'm just gonna say Thunderball out there for scores.
yeah. Those are my favorites when they use the theme from the song in the actual theme for the movie.
Yeah.
The one I think that is the most forgettable would be GoldenEye. Like Eric Serra, I can't think of any track from that I think is like, oh yeah, that's really good. Because David Arnold I think did a really good job with Tomorrow Never Dies, and then he took over after that. But yeah, the beginning, like I think the track is called like The White Knight, in Tomorrow Never Dies. That's like the beginning when he's like the exploding the jet, and they've got like the missile.
Yeah, I don't even remember that at all.
Yeah, but yeah, the GoldenEye one is I think probably the most forgettable out of all the scores.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I have nothing else to say about the scores except for the fact that John Barry have done pretty much not all of them, but most of them, right? For
Yeah,
the films, yeah. So credit for John Barry right there. And yeah, of course, the iconic theme, the dun, 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 dun.
yeah.
That's always gonna be forever iconic.
Dr. No, Mon Norman.
Mhm. So yeah, well, now let's transition, I guess, from songs to the favorite films. And once again, Cole, it is not Spectre, at least for me. So, what is your favorite? Should we? You know what? Let's go with the worst one first. Your least favorite one, and then we'll talk about the favorite one. What's yours?
Least favorite is Quantum. And yeah, I recently rewatched it. It's about as bad as I remember. I would still watch it, but it's just the editing is so jarring. Like you can't get a good view of any of the
I
action
agree.
that takes place, and I just think, especially when you have like the story that's very mediocre and just sort of a continuation of the plot from Casino Royale. I mean, that mixed with the poorly edited action scene that just takes you out of the movie, and yeah, that would be my least favorite.
Yeah. You mentioned I put Die Another Day, and it's because simply, well, the song doesn't help. The amount of CGI that they have, and it wasn't even good, does not help at all. The
At
forgettable,
least you can see Bond surfing on the wave. At least you can see it
it was
in like
atrocious. It was
a
atrocious.
5-second take.
It doesn't have the best villain. It have a bad henchman. It have a awful song. The CGI does not help the film at all. I would put that around the bottom. But yeah, Quantum. If someone asks me which one should I rather watch, Die Another Day or Quantum of Solace, I'm like, I cannot even pick because they're different, but they're both not good. Quantum of Solace, it feels, if I'm not wrong, it have the most kill count in Bond films. Is that right? I cannot remember.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
so.
someone mentioned that. So yeah, that's not it. That doesn't help. And it's really jarring, like you said, the editing and everything like that. So yeah. So I
Yeah,
think those two is probably in the bottom, at least for me.
yeah. There's one good scene that I can remember in Quantum, and it's the one where he's like confronting all of the members of
Uh,
Spectre, like in the theater or whatever it is.
yeah,
That I think was pretty good. But yeah, anytime there's action, it's just like you have no idea what's going on, and you just know it's going to be like that from the first sequence when like the car chase in the beginning. Like
hmm
it starts out, there's a long shot, across the water, and then
hmm
as soon as you get to the car chase, it's just like cut every half second.
hmm
It's so bad.
Well, from the worst one to the best ones. I'll start. My favorite one is once again the first film I ever saw, and upon repeat viewing, it just gets better and better. Casino Royale. It's different than all the other Bond films, but it's a fantastic. It's very compelling. Once again, Craig did a fantastic job. Vesper Lynn did fantastic. Did a fantastic. Eva Green as Vesper Lynn is fantastic. And the fact is, half of the film is about the poker game, and it's so thrilling.
So
It's
interesting,
so
yeah.
intense, and it's so compelling. And a friend of mine pointed out the film literally was it's sort of like a 3-act film of like an action film in the beginning, a poker film in the middle, and sort of like a romance film near the end. And it sort of is true, and it works so well as like one Bond film, and it also still feels like Bond, even though it's very different because they're sort of reinventing the Bond films, but it still works. So Casino Royale is my favorite, still to this day.
Yeah.
How about
I
you?
think it's really good. I think the reason it doesn't sit as high with me is just because of nostalgia and liking all the other movies from childhood. But yeah, it's definitely great. If I had one gripe, it would just be, and it's more of the new take they're doing with like a modern take is the gadgets. They have a lot less focus on the gadgets. But that's just that's true of like the entire Craig run. But yeah, it's definitely a great movie. My favorite is still Goldfinger, just because I think it has everything you want in a good Bond film. I mean, the score is really good. Connery, the first Bond, really great villain, great Bond girl, unique plot, interesting gadgets. So I think that's definitely my favorite.
Yeah, Goldfinger. I just might as well say my top five. Goldfinger is my number three. Casino Royale and Skyfall is my top two, and the reason for Skyfall is it still's in the same tone, and still obviously same. Most of the actors are the same for the Daniel Craig ones. I thought it was fantastic. It because it sort of revisits it. They got Hugh back. They got Bond coming back for like a meeting M for like a mission and everything like that. And it starts off really strong. It's sort of weaker on the end of it, and it's sort of on the longer side of the film as well. But as a whole, Skyfall is fantastic. The Spy Who Loved Me is my number four, and my number five is Under Majesty's Secret Service. So yeah, that's my top five films.
All right. My number two is On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I just moved it up after watching it last night because it really hit me. And then Tomorrow Never Dies, which a lot of people put in their like bottom half, but I just really like the plot. I think and Michelle Yeoh I think is a great Bond girl. I also have GoldenEye. And then number five, Casino Royale is actually my number six, but number five, You Only Live Twice. That's just because more of nostalgia, because that was the one I watched the most as a kid. Like I would watch it probably once a week, once every 2 weeks. So it was,
It's a fun one.
definitely, and like I said earlier, the third act is one of my favorites. It's just so much fun with the ninjas and the volcano. So that's not my top five.
I was about to say something, but I blanked out. But yeah, those are definitely my favorite ones. What was I about to say? I feel like I was about to say something about the Roger Moore films, but I couldn't remember.
Oh, I guess I would say in terms of Roger Moore, I think he probably has the most, at least decent to good ones out of everyone. I mean, in terms of number, obviously he did the most. I don't know if that's what you were gonna say, but I think
no.
I mean,
no, I definitely
like,
that, but
yeah.
But yeah, it's all right. If it comes back, I'll bring it up. But yeah, as for now, those are just my thoughts on all the films. Well, not all the films, but like my favorite and my least favorite ones. So there. We're approaching sort of closer to the end here of the show, and we'll want to wrap it up on like if you have any predictions or for No Time to Die, or if you have a wish list for like future Bond films, either like an actor that you want to talk about, some stunts, or a possible idea for a villain, or even like location, because that's a big part that we mentioned earlier on. What wish list do you have or predictions for No Time to Die?
Predictions, I don't think I can do because who knows if we're even going to see it this year. I don't even want to get my hopes up for that. Yeah. As far as wish list, I have some things that I think a little interesting. For locations, I was trying to think of like where we haven't gone before.
Mhm.
So I was thinking like New Zealand or Australia. I don't think he's been there. Obviously, George Lazenby is Australian, but we've never actually been there. Canada is also an interesting one because I don't think we've ever been to Canada.
Canada, though. Australia, there's a lot of exotics. There's a lot of animals. The northern part is the desert, which is literally something you can explore.
Yeah.
James Bond. So Australia and New Zealand is a good one. I don't know. I don't know about Canada though.
Yeah, I think the Canada one would have to be something more like industrial, or I don't know, not as much like in the outdoors. It kind of depends because they're a mixture of different locations and plots that they've done in past movies.
It is a Commonwealth related country though. So
yeah. And as far as the villain, I think it would be really interesting to see the return of someone, because we haven't had a female main villain since World's Not Enough. And I think having like something or someone more in like the Octopussy type of role. So I was thinking of actresses that I think would fit that. So I was thinking of like Lucy Liu. I think would be an interesting choice because I think it would be interesting having someone who can do a lot more like physical, as opposed to normally it's the henchman who's doing a lot more physical role. I also thought like Cate Blanchett, Viola Davis, Laura Dern. And then for a henchwoman I think maybe Gina Carano. She's only had a lead in like Haywire, and I thought she was okay in that. But I think it would be interesting to see her as like a henchwoman in a role. And then I always liked in terms of plot, the ones where like he forms an alliance with one of the organizations, like with like You Only Live Twice with the ninjas, and then On Her Majesty's with the Draco's organization. So that would be something I would want to see. That I always like the big third act battle scenes.
Yeah, I didn't thought so much about the casting, although if once again, I don't think he is the perfect one right now, but give him some time, age him up a bit. I think Dacre Montgomery, who you might know from Power Rangers, he played Red Ranger, or from Stranger Things as Billy. He's Australian, Lazenby's Australian. I think he would be great as a Bond actor, but he's too young at this point. Because he's like in his 20s, and I think most Bond actors, they got cast around their 30s or even in the late 30s, early 40s. I think most Bond actors got cast around that. So that's just something to point out there. Because they like to get unknowns, but probably by that point, Dacre will probably be sort of a known name, I think. But like right now, it's not really a known name. But Dacre Montgomery.
Yeah. I think it depends on what route they're going to go, because I personally think they're going to go with someone younger. As opposed to like the Roger Moore pick, because I don't know what their plans are, but if they're planning on having someone do a 10 to 15 year run, they'll want to get someone probably in the late 20s, early 30s.
That'll be interesting to see a take of Bond.
In
that kind of age range, or like definitely on that era of his life. And also, for the not exactly stunts, but like I want to see more, because we've seen the action parts. I want to see more of the spy thriller parts again. Revisit that. I think that could be fun for Bond films. And as for location, not all of it, but for the most part, I love when Bond goes to tropical or exotic places, like in Thunderball, or where else does it go to exotic locations?
Are you thinking more like a forest or something? Like Octopussy.
That I like in Octopussy as well. Even Louisiana is sort of exotic because of the more naturey part of it. And Live and Let Die, I like that. So I thought, he's been to Asia several times, but there is quite a famous Asian location for like tourism, and of course he've gone to Thailand, which is the closest thing to like a Southeast Asian place, in The Man with the Golden Gun. But the one that I'm thinking of, and I gotta wrap my country, in Indonesia, there is a place called Bali, which a lot of people know about, and I think that will be a great fun place to see James Bond. because it's a tropical place. It have, in terms of Indonesia, Bali have such a rich culture in there, and there are so many exotic
Mm-hmm.
places that you could go to, that I think could be fun. Plus, watching a film where you know where it's set, just makes you feel good. So like I've been to Bali so
Yeah.
many times, so I'm like, this could be fun to see a Bond film in Bali. I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna happen anytime soon, but I like the exotic. Once again, I like the exotic places, like the ones that I mentioned. So yeah, I'll
Yeah.
throw
That's the
Bali
thing.
out there.
The character's been to so many locations, so
Mhm.
you'd think that eventually they'd get to a lot of the new places they haven't been.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I do wish. I like the henchman type, so maybe in the future films they go back to more henchman-y, because the closest thing to a henchman we got in the newer films is Mr. Hinks. So if we
Yeah.
get more of the fun henchmen, because there's a lot of things that you could do with it, because most of them are fun and kind of it's a little bit ridiculous, but they're fun to watch. So
Yeah,
you can
definitely.
get that. Well, that's my wish list for Bond films. Once again, I didn't think of casting too much, because I really don't know. I like to be surprised with, especially with how they've been doing it. They like to cast unknowns, so
Yeah.
it could be fun to see what's in store.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. I mean, I have ideas for casting, but just based on what I've heard, but it's so hard. It's almost
Mhm.
more fun to just kind of like accept what they choose and go
Uh-huh.
with it, as opposed to like trying to campaign to get a certain person, because like
Mhm.
you said, they were all unknowns before for the most part.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So, yeah, well, you have anything else to say about anything Bond related, or if not, then I think we cover a whole lot of stuff, and it's
Yeah, I mean, we covered so much.
uh-huh.
I guess maybe what's your favorite sort of basic plot outline? Like, because obviously some of them are very similar
Hmm.
in plot. So what's like your favorite, either like villain motivation or overall like storyline?
That's a thinker. I'll need to look at the list and sort it through. Do you have anything for that one yourself? Do you have an answer for that?
No, I guess I haven't really thought of it. Just kind of popped in my head. But
Oh.
yeah, I definitely think the unique ones where like you have the more personal motivation, those are always interesting. And like I always like the teaming up with some organization to fight all the henchmen in a big battle, like in Thunderball, You Only Live Twice,
Mhm.
Moonraker. Well, Moonrakers I don't like, but yeah.
I'm trying to think of like just the based on the plot perspective, which one is a good one. Goldfinger is obviously it stands out because of the brilliance of the story itself.
Yeah.
I think From Russia with Love is a good one in terms of story, and just because it's not action heavy, but it's spy heavy, and I like that. And he also, and the villain motivation literally to just kill James Bond.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that.
Yeah, when you think about that one, it's actually a really unique storyline, even though it's only the second one.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, those are the ones that, in terms of just story, those are the ones that just stands out to me. And I actually remember what I wanted to say about the Roger Moore one earlier. You mentioned about gadgets. A lot of the gadgets from the Roger Moore era is like both Moore and I think Dalton sort of, but like those era, the gadgets, it feels like, how do I say this? Like the newer, like either the Connery or the Craig era, the gadgets feels like it can be useful for multiple things. Like
Oh yeah, I know what
the
you're
gadgets
saying.
for Moore and like Dalton or like even Brosnan, it feels
Yeah.
like it's useful for a very specific instance, but not really for other else.
Yeah, it's
Like
always like based on whatever location they're in. So like
yeah,
some
literally,
like we yeah. Yeah,
like
I
good
definitely
for
see
one
that. Yeah.
scenario, but like if in other scenario it wouldn't work at all. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that's what I wanted to point out. Yeah, I got nothing else.
Yeah, we covered a lot of material.
Mhm. Well then, having said that, we do hope that No Time to Die still get released either way on streaming or theaters. For me, at least, I don't mind. I'm just excited to watch that one.
Yeah.
And since we covered everything, I guess it's just time to sign off then. So Matt, where can the people find you online if you want to plug your social medias or anything like that?
You can find me on Twitter at Movie Magic 97.
All right, and yeah, once again, thank you for coming a guest last minute here for the show, and it's been a lot of fun talking to you about James Bond because I don't know who else I would rather do this with talking about James Bond than you because you're the expert.
Yeah,
in this.
I wouldn't say expert, but I think I'm the only one who's seen other
Among
than
our
you has
friend
seen
group.
all of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Cole has seen
I
like
think
maybe
you
10
have.
of
Yeah.
them. Yeah, but I think that's the closest to anyone
Anyone
else.
else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as usual, I'm gonna plug. You guys can find me at Wiradharma on Twitter and Instagram, and John Movies YouTube. This is a YouTube channel where we're watching the video format. Um, and you can find the Councilmen at Councilmen Show on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find the Councilmen podcast feed by tapping down the Councilmen on anywhere you listen to podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Anchor, Castbox, wherever you listen to. That's where you can find the Councilmen Show. Leave us a review, and we'll shout you out in the next show. Um, and like I said earlier in the episode, the reason why we didn't have the regular cast crew is the other regular crew is because we did a commentary track, and it is for Scooby Doo Monsters Unleashed, which we did the other day. That will be released on Tuesday, 8 p.m. EST. It will be premiering on YouTube. So if you want to rent the film and watch it along with us, that will be the release date for the video version on YouTube. I'll time it around the same time on the audio podcast feed. Actually, I'll do it earlier so you guys can set it as well if you just want to listen to the audio. But yeah, that is the Monsters Unleashed commentary track coming out this Tuesday. And yeah, I think that will be it for me. And so yeah, once again, Matt, thank you for coming on. And
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and yeah, this has been the Councilman episode 72 on the Councilman Secret Service. And until next time, guys, the Councilman has spoken. See ya, everybody.